Hopefully, he says, I've got a book coming out soon. Shouldn't have eaten it, really. I hate sitting in traffic because I always get run over. As a child, I had a medical condition that meant I had to eat soil 3 times a day in order to survive. It was lucky that my older brother told me about it, really. I don't know if Jacob's listening at home. And another one, my grandfather is always saying that in the olden days, people would leave their back doors open, which is probably why the submarine sank. Proverbs have a similar machine gun style, and we have 3 chapters that I was very kindly given this morning, with a variety of verses on a variety of themes, covering a variety of pieces of advice and guidance, all under this theme of wisdom. And I want to choose one verse. I'm just going to use one verse this morning, and it's Proverbs chapter 19, verse 8. And it is, he or the one who gets wisdom loves his own soul. He who cherishes understanding prospers. He who gets wisdom loves his own soul. He who cherishes understanding prospers. If you're happy to leave that up, John, that would be really helpful. Thank you. The theme of wisdom pervades this entire book. I must admit, in looking at these chapters, there are a couple of curious proverbs, which Ruth warned me off from speaking on, because it may lead to the rescinding of any Father's Day presents that I may have received this morning. If any of you have got a Bible open in front of you, chapter 29, verses 9 and 19, just in case you want to have a quick look at those. But this verse here, chapter 19, verse 8, talks about the importance of wisdom. It says that it's something that you get. You get wisdom, which suggests that it might be something that evolves, or it grows, or it develops, and it develops within the character of an individual. The people who get wisdom, they are people that love their life or love their own soul, which hints that the wisdom is an attribute or a concept which adds to the richness of life that we experience. And perhaps there's something that suggests that it adds something really deep into our inner life, our soul, our inner being, that guttural thing that we perhaps can't quite grasp. But deep within our soul, it adds to the richness. Wisdom adds to the richness of our soul. People who get wisdom love life, and they cherish understanding. It cherishes understanding, and it leads to somebody prospering. We perhaps muddy this word with the phrase prosperity gospel, but there's a deeper, richer meaning beyond money and possession. Perhaps looking at things like contentment and peace and calm. The ability to see life with that sense of perspective, seeing the bigger picture. A story that I've told, I know, a few times here before, is there was a security guard on duty one evening in a warehouse, and late one evening, one of the workers came out pushing a wheelbarrow full of sawdust, and the security guard stops him and says, hey, what are you doing? You must be taking, what are you doing? I'm just wheeling out this sawdust. Just a wheelbarrow of sawdust. Okay, fine. And then the second night, again, the same person was coming out wheeling this wheelbarrow full of sawdust. And the third night and the fourth night, and this carried on. And the security guard said, look, you must be doing something. You can't just be wheeling out sawdust every night. You must be doing something that you shouldn't be doing. What is it that you are doing that you shouldn't be doing? He says, I'm stealing wheelbarrows. Seeing the bigger picture, trying to look beyond what's just there to see a bigger story. But if the contention of this book of Proverbs is about pursuing or getting wisdom, and that the verse that we have on the screen here is encouraging that, how do we do it? How do we become wise people? How do we get wisdom? We sort of have the basic concepts that if we want to lose weight, we might want to exercise and maybe eat well. If we want to learn a language, we sort of think, well, we need to practice it, maybe immerse ourselves in a culture, maybe get tuition on it. If we need money for something, the basic rules of economics is you cut expenditure and seek to boost income. But how do we get wisdom? 3 A's this morning. 3 C's from Joe's dad a few weeks ago, 3 A's this morning. At the first A, how do we get wisdom? A, we take advice. We take advice. We like to be in control of things, don't we? We like to be people that have everything in hand. Sometimes there's a nervousness about taking advice. Does that perhaps suggest to people that maybe we're not in control? Maybe we don't have everything in hand. Maybe we're not as all-knowing as we perhaps want to perceive ourselves to be. Something that I've been involved in for many years now at work in my role is tricky staff disciplinary matters, and I'm sure a number of you have been involved in those in different contexts here. And when I engage with those, I always have a business partner, somebody from human resources who is there alongside me. My role in these processes are to ask questions. I ask questions a lot, and it's to reach a view on what has gone on. My business partner, the person who is there with me, is making sure that I stay on track, that I don't stray off piste, that I don't do things that are contrary to the process, that I stay focused on what I should be doing, as opposed to getting interested in what's going on over here. And it's really important that I take advice from the person who is supporting me in this process, asking for feedback from friends or a colleague. Reaching out to people who are perhaps more experienced in the field that you are looking at. He who gets wisdom. How do you get wisdom? Verse 19, chapter 19, verse 20. Listen to advice and accept instruction. And at the end, you'll be counted among the wise. Listen to advice and accept discipline and accept instruction. And at the end, you will be counted among the wise. Chapter 19, verse 20. How many of you put your sat-nav on your car? And it's a route that you will normally take. When I go down to Southampton, I will always put the sat-nav on. I know where I'm going, I can get into the car, I can drive to the other end, I know the route, quite easy, back and forth. But I will always put the sat-nav on. Because every now and again it will say, you can save 4 minutes if you take this route. No, I won't. No, I won't. And then you have that inner battle with the sat-nav, don't you? Should I take the advice of the sat-nav, or do I know best? If you compare verse 20 with some of the other verses in this area, verse 27 in chapter 19, stop listening to instruction, my son, and you will stray from the words of knowledge. And then in chapter 20, verse 18, plans are established by seeking advice. So if you wage war, obtain guidance. Isn't that a pity that we haven't seen that over the last year or so? So first of all, to get wisdom, don't be afraid to take advice. The second day is about appropriate foundations. Altogether, the wise man built his house upon the rock. His house upon the rock. Where's Ken when you need him? Where's your dad today, Carolyn? He's preaching at Northall today, is he? And then the rain came down. Did you see the rain this week? Was it this week? It was this week. The rain came down. Fortunately, our houses are still standing, but our porch was a bit soggy at the end. I don't know if he told you that, Lisa, actually. So, yeah. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. In Mark chapter 8, there's a story of the rich young ruler who goes to see Jesus and says to Jesus, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Now, for those of you that say, I really find sharing my faith difficult. You know, I wish I had a bit more confidence in that steer. I wish it came a bit more naturally. You've got this almost open goal where this person goes up to Jesus and says, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" You're thinking, excellent, maybe this is my top 5 tips for what I say when I'm all clamming up and I don't know what to say or what to do. And Jesus' response, "Why do you call me good? Why do you call me good?" And there's this interaction between the two of them. What must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus looks at him and he loves him. He looks at him and he loves him. One thing you lack. Go and sell all you possess and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Come and follow me. But he was dismayed by these words, and he went away sad, for he was one who owned much property. Why did this person go away sad? Why did the rich young ruler turn and go away in sadness? Jesus looked at him and loved him. Despite what Jesus knew about this person, Jesus still looked at him and loved him. But Jesus knew that the foundations of his life were not where it should, or not where they should have been. What are the foundations of our life? What do we build our life upon? The beginning of chapter 20, wine is a mocker and beer a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise. Do we build our foundation on our education and our knowledge? Do we build our foundation on our possessions and our wealth? Do we build our foundations on substances, such as referred to in the verse I've just read? Do we build our foundations on our family history? 1 Corinthians 3, for no one can lay any foundation other than one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. Building our foundations on Jesus Christ, the rock on which we build. So take advice. Second, have appropriate foundations. And then thirdly, act with honesty and integrity. In a law context, teaching about the concept of, or the legal concept of dishonesty is quite good fun, really, because you have different concepts of honesty and dishonesty. And a go-to example is, well, what happens if you get given, it's a bit, do you remember money? Do you remember money? But you go into a shop and you pay with a £20 note, and then the shop gives you change for, I don't know, gives you change for a £50 note or whatever it might be. And is there any difference when you say, oh, you've given me too much change back, if it's in a small local independent shop or if it's in a big supermarket? Is there any distinction there? What about downloading or streaming things from the internet? Where does honesty stray into dishonesty? There's this greyness in the middle, which if you're teaching law is great fun with students. The righteous, in chapter 20, verse 7, the righteous lead blameless lives. Blessed are the children after them. Something about righteousness. Something about righteousness leading to a blameless life. What does it mean to be righteous? What does it mean to be someone who is acting with honesty and integrity? Chapter 20, verse 10, differing weights and differing measures. The Lord detests them both. This idea of scales, where you're perhaps just incorrectly measuring what something actually weighs. Be honest with people. What is it that you are measuring against? Verse 14 in chapter 20, it's no good, says the buyer. And then goes off and boasts about the purchase. That's a line to think about, where you've purchased something, you've obtained something. And you think you've got a really good deal, but you're moaning to the person who's sold it to you. It's no good. But go off and say, actually, I'm really pleased with this. Then a person may think their own ways are right, but God weighs the heart. And that line from 1 Samuel, David and King David, God looks at the heart. God looks at the inside of people. Man looks on the outside, but God looks in the heart. John, I know you've been waiting for this moment for many months. As some of you know, I'm a football referee. John loves my football stories. He can't wait for them to crop up. And I've been refereeing football for about 28 years. And I'm still as bad today as I was the moment I passed on that day, that summer back in 1995. And for all of this time, I've had no real ambition in refereeing, mainly because I'm flipping awful. But also, I've never been able to go through the promotion process. And the reason why I couldn't go through the promotion process is it just didn't fit for me. I needed to do a certain number of games in a season, and you had to do it all in a season. And now that's well and good if you are a referee that can do Saturday afternoons, and I can do a majority of Saturday afternoons, and if you do Sunday mornings as well. And you're probably sitting here going, why can't you just clear off the referee on a Saturday morning, because then we wouldn't have to listen to him. But without doing the Sunday mornings, I could never get the games in. And so for this season, after 28 plus years, they have changed the rules. And you still need to get a number of games in, get a number of games in, but you can do it over whatever period of time you want. Well, so at the back end of last season, I started collecting my games. And the games were coming in. I was entering onto a little Google form, and up they go. And I had a couple of observations. Do any of you remember Bill Hamilton, the former BBC reporter? Bill Hamilton, fellow referee, chum of mine. He came to observe me. Really nice guy. He did the eulogy at John Motson's funeral a few weeks ago. So there you are. That's something you probably didn't need to know. But no, so I had a couple of observations, and fortunately, I don't have to do a fitness test, so that's okay. But then the games were coming in, and then we had a deadline. So the deadline for sort of making sure that you've got everything you need together was the 30th of April. And I was looking in the week up, in sort of the week up to sort of 30th of April. It was 30th of April, otherwise it'd be the end of October. I was looking, one game short. And I'm thinking in that week, I've refereed football for 28 years. I have done games all over the country. I have upset countless people. Who would know if I put a game that I did in 2004 on my list so that I would then tip over to get the number of games that I should get? And then I could get promoted. Just to put a bit of context into this, Lisa asked me, so what do you get if you get promoted? Do you get bigger games? No. Do you get more money? No. That's it, really. So, but who would know? And I was thinking, well, I could get a game from 2004, because I did the game. But it wasn't within this period. What do I do? Shall I? And you know, you have that sort of inner struggle. You know, what should I do? Who would know? I mean, nobody here cares that I referee. I suspect I might have refereed a few people that you might know, and that's probably about as close as it ever gets. Who would care? The day before the deadline, I get a text message comes through at 7:18 in the morning. Is anyone able to do a game? At 7:21, I respond saying, okay then, and off I go. I go out and do this game. It's perfectly straightforward, nothing to see. And I get the number of games in that I needed to get in. And a few weeks later, my letter came through saying, congratulations. No, it's not that exciting. The day after, a couple of you might remember a lady called Ruth Forshaw. A day after, just coincidentally, he says in inverted commas, just coincidentally, Ruth Forshaw just put one of these motto things up that you see on Facebook from time to time. And it was a quotation from C.S. Lewis. Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is looking. And I acknowledge in its entirety that we see horrific tragedy in the waters around Greece. We see our world in a complete mess. We see war and famine. And I acknowledge entirely that this story is in many ways puerile and silly and a little bit daft. But I think there is something somewhere about the importance of acting with integrity and doing the right thing when no one is looking. I used the word earlier, perspective, and I'm a big fan of that word and a big fan of that concept. And I think when we're looking at wisdom and when we're looking at what that means, I think perspective is a really really useful way to be looking at this theme. Some of you might be familiar with the photo called Blue Pale Dot. Blue Pale Dot, okay? There's no point me showing you what this photo looks like, because in essence, this photo would just be a black screen with the tiniest, you see where that his, we see where his is, you'd probably have that, the eye of the his would probably be pale blue with this very tiny shard of light going over it. In other words, you probably wouldn't be able to see it even if I was to show it to you this morning, but Google it later. If you've got your phone, you can Google Blue Pale Dot. And this was a photo which was taken in 1990 by Voyager 1, when it was about 3.7 billion miles from Earth, just beyond the end of the metropolitan line. As I say, the photo was entirely black, with this tiniest blue dot, with this tiniest shard stream of light just going across this dot, identifying the blue dot. This photo was taken by Voyager 1 as it was traveling out into wherever it was going into the universe. And it was almost as if it just turned around and just took one final picture. You know, when you're on holiday somewhere, you're saying, oh, this is really, really good. Oh, I've got to go and I've got to go back to the car. I just want to take one last look. And it's the idea of just that Voyager 1 just taking one last look and just coincidentally seeing this blue pale dot, which was Earth. Carl Sagan, the US astronomer, said, look at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their life. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbour life. There is nowhere else yet, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the blue pale dot, the only home we've ever known. So when it comes to developing wisdom, growing understanding, grasping perspective, take advice, build on appropriate foundations, and act with honesty and integrity.